Yeah. So, because you bring up Riker, and I wanted to talk a little bit about technology, and just so this show, we actually focus quite a bit on the new show, which is Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
Which is where they've picked back up with Captain Pike before Captain Kirk took over the Enterprise. But me and my co-host are both like gigantic, if you scratch us, gigantic Star Trek nerds that can probably just randomly grab a topic and run with it. So I figure while he was gone, I'd go ahead and get into a couple things that we wouldn't normally talk about. And one of the ones I approached you with, because you seem to be a research-heavy kind of dude.
Me?
I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about different technologies in Star Trek.
Yes.
And since we already brought up transporter cloned William and Thomas Riker, let's talk a little bit about transporters to get us started and see where we go.
The first thing I got to say about like the transporter or any of the similar technology that I've had an issue with is that I feel like a half a dozen of the episodes of Next Gen, if not more, had to do with some sort of weird transporter malfunction that creates some weird anomaly. And that's like what they like, because like there was also one where like Geordi became like where nobody could see Geordi and he was like walking through everything. Like,
oh yeah,
like, it was such a reoccurring like plot device for him. So, I understand its purpose, but I just want to point out how I think it was an overused tactic, but that's just my opinion.
Well, originally when it was created, it was a money saving device.
Yes.
Just so they wouldn't have to try to land a ship every week, which, you figure back then that model of the Enterprise was like 13 or 15 feet long. And you try to shoot that thing landing, that would have been your whole budget. So one of the things I had always thought with the transporters, and maybe this is just because I listened to Dr. McCoy too much, it always seemed to me, you go onto a transporter pad and a copy of you gets off somewhere else and they kill the original you.
Yeah. Like the Prestige, yeah.
Yeah, that always bothered me.
Because, obviously, like, how can you, it's fiction, but at the same time, you can't, but it's the same thing with warp drive, too, if you think, possibly, if you think about it, because how can you jettison something that quickly? It's more just a fax machine than an actual carrier pigeon. Right.
And, I think McCoy always complaining about it, that always kind of settled in with me that the more I looked at it, I'm just like, I don't see how that works. And then the fact that there were 2 Rikers after that accident
kind of proves it, yeah.
Just kind of proves it, yeah.
Oh, and side note on the technology of technology, kind of branching off on this, if I may.
Sure.
I remember an episode of Reading Rainbow where LeVar Burton showed behind the scenes of Star Trek and how they made it, and with the transporter, how they filmed a glass with like glitter in it, a glass of water with glitter in it. They stirred around, and I remember they used that as part of the basis of the transport footage. I always thought that was really cool.
I vaguely remember that episode, but I don't. Because I would have been, I don't know how old you are. I would have been like 14 or 15 when they did that, or older. So it would have been a little bit past the Reading Rainbow age. But of course, LeVar Burton had been doing that show so long that it was on when I was in grade school.
True.
Yeah. Which is why he is a great man and the rest of us aren't, But, I think what was the one I saw I saw how they did it on TOS, and it was like they had a black chamber or something, and then they dumped like aluminum dust and really heavily lit it from like 2 different directions.
Yeah.
So you got a glitter effect, and then they could just drop it in over your cutout of the people standing on the pads.
Right. I got to admit, the Next Gen doing it, just glitter in a glass of water, just makes it a lot easier.
so elegant. Because imagine how long you would be sweeping up aluminum dust.
But see, now this is one of the things about the 2009, even though I do love it a lot. They went back in time, but why does transporter technology look different? Why does the transport beams don't look the same? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that because in my lifetime, the Klingons have changed a bunch.
Oh yeah.
So when you change visual cues on me, it doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those guys that gets too fussed up about it, because if I was, that means that the Ferengi are broken and the Trill are broken. Like all these things they introduced and then changed a little bit later, I would have to have a meltdown over.